So we've been working together for quite a few years now.
Yeah.
And the way we met was it was a really nice kind of story, right?
Yeah, I think it's a good story.
Yeah. Well, it's a funny story. I mean, from my point of view, it almost didn't happen. And this is the story. This is the story. I think it was in 2015, so it was really quite a long time ago now. I got this call out of the blue from the Netherlands Radio Philharmonic Orchestra for a commission, like an orchestral piece with choir that was 30 minutes in duration for the Holland Festival. And I mean, this is something that doesn't happen every day, and it's sort of like a dream come true as well. And yeah, exactly. I'm like, stay cool. But anyway, so part of this commission was that that they wanted to include a solo didgeridoo player, which was you, and you're the most famous Dutch didgeridoo player, as the Dutch mother of didge, having played with the Netherlands Radio Philharmonic before.
Yeah.
Which piece did you play? How did they find out about you?
I think, played Peter Sculpthorpe, and I think they just were looking on internet, and they came across my bio, seeing that I played harp and cello when I was growing up, and they listened to some of my things, and then I got contacted. That was 2012.
Okay.
So yeah, I played this piece, and I think they really liked it, and you know who loves didgeridoo. yeah. But basically, you were like, you have to play with her, right?
Yeah.
And you were like,
well,
right?
For sure. But
well, I can imagine.
There's a story in that as an Australian, we're brought up in the milieu of we have a colonial history. There's still a lot of unrest amongst the different people in Australia, and we have an Indigenous culture, and the Indigenous people of Australia, the Aboriginal people, have this very strong tradition, a strong cultural history, which is incredible because it's the oldest continuous tradition in the world. They have more. Like archaeologists are discovering more and more how far back this goes. And the tragic thing was that when Europeans started to arrive in Australia and started to colonize, it had a devastating effect on the Indigenous culture. And so as we grow up, we're very sensitive about this and about the respect for culture and how we should treat the Aboriginal people, but also their stories, and we're taught very early that it is culturally sensitive to use Aboriginal music, to use the didgeridoo, and there are traditions around it because it's a sacred instrument and it's an instrument of ritual, and it's particularly we have to be particularly mindful that it belongs to men's culture, because in Aboriginal culture you have men's culture and you have women's culture.
Yeah.
And because it belongs to men's culture, we're sort of ingrained with this knowledge of we shouldn't use it in any other way other than ritual, other than as a sacred instrument.
And also being female, for me this part was super interesting also, to discover this, and like you say, Aboriginal culture, but for me it became clear there is not one Aboriginal culture, because there are so many different tribes with so many different laws about it.
Yeah.
And where I was in the top end, like with Jalo Guravivi, he is fine with women playing, and he gave me a blessing and an instrument.
Right.
But I am very aware that the region where you grew up, they're very anti-females playing. So I can imagine that you were like,
yeah, it was almost a deal breaker. I mean, consider this, like out of the blue, you get this biggest commission, which is a dream come true, for the Holland Festival with the Radio Philharmonic Orchestra, and that I might almost have to pull out because I can't write for Didgeridoo.
Yeah.
It was very close.
yeah,
But there was something that that stayed in my mind, and I was and it was like, no, I'm being given this piece because it's the right time for me to come to terms with this, and I have to ask myself what it is that I need to know, and so I have to go back to the bush and I have to spend time there. This piece has to be about the bush and about the raw experience of going there and recognizing that I don't know, even though I grew up, even though my family through I think 6 generations lived in this place, and yet I don't know enough about it. So that was the spark for the piece. It's like, okay, I have to work with you, I have to ask the question. And then together we went to the bush with a team of people and spent 10 days just to be there with no sort of preconceived idea, no kind of judgment, just to be like sort of a blank canvas.
Yeah.
And to see what would come back.
Yeah, just that road, as that abandoned first settlers road. That
well, we followed the Great North Road
Yeah.
all the way from the middle of Sydney, the centre of Sydney, all the way to Newcastle, basically.
Yeah.
Some of it has been modernised, and some of it is not there anymore, and some of it is preserved as it was. And we learnt a lot.
We did, and we came to special places, met special people. No,
Yeah.
it's a
And
beautiful journey.
I think it turned up more questions than answers in a way.
Yeah,
And so that's so we're still on that journey.
we are. I think my whole life I will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, I should say, like, to ask you, who is Jalu?
Jalu Gurrevivi is one of the custodians of the Yirdaki, I should say now, because in his language, Yolnumata, it is the word for this instrument. And he's one of the like really the custodian over there. So a man that everybody looks up to and has a lot of knowledge about this instrument. And I followed a master class, I think it was in 2000s with him. And this was also for me a big learning thing because like you said, there is this taboo about females playing. And I did get an invitation, but you know, via internet, they don't know what Lies is, if it's a male or female. So they were expecting a male, and then it was this whole big thing, like, oh, what are we going to do with her? And but then Jalu was like, no, she can follow the master class, Yirdaki master class. So I did, and but this also, I was very like, ooh, what's going on? Because at first it was like, no, you can do only the women business kind of thing, and I saved up a lot of money and I borrowed money to go there, so for me it was really like, oh, but I was also very much into, okay, just be and you'll get what you need to get out of this trip. And then I think the second day, Jalu, because I was trying to be really respectful, and I was sitting in the class but didn't touch any instrument. And then in the breaks and after I would practice what they were explaining. But the second day he took my didgeridoo because I lent it to some French guy that didn't come with an instrument, and he gave it to me and he's like, now you. And this was the moment that there was a camera crew also there. So for me it was also for him a statement like, hey, I'm cool with females playing this instrument.
Right.
So for me that was really a beautiful and exciting moment.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's really a very special thing.
Yeah, and he's a very special man. So, and he's still alive, which is, he's super old for. Yeah,
I love that story so much. It's really, so I'm like super honored that you can join.
Yeah,
Hertz Ensemble.
Well, I'm super honored to be part of it because. Well, as you know, I'm a big fan of your music, and I love playing it every time I'm part of it. I just, like, my soul is just dancing and joy. Sometimes my body too.